The European Sting, 3rd of August 2023, what's next for the collaboration between China and Brazil on green value chains? Experts clarify. Brazil is the most recent nation to submit to China's ferocious campaign to annex Latin America. The Joint Communiqué on further strengthening China-Brazil strategic partnership and the Brazil-China joint statement on combating climate change was signed during Brazilian President Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva's state visit to China in April of this year. In emerging areas like environmental protection, responding to climate change, and the low-carbon economy, the strengthening of collaboration between two large countries from the Global South is of enormous strategic relevance for improving present geopolitical ties. By successfully implementing their respective laws against importing and exporting illegal goods, China and Brazil have pledged to work together to end worldwide illicit logging and deforestation. China has actively promoted sustainable governance and the preservation of forests within its boundaries in the past, and progress has been made. By developing a green value chain and sustainable agricultural product trade system, China and Brazil will go a long way toward protecting the Brazilian tropical rainforest in the future. 3 specialists examine the consequences and future of this recent Brazil-China cooperation. The nature of global governance is evolving. Our view leans toward fostering multilateral collaboration through bilateral exchanges, sending out messages of hope, Wang Yi, a former vice president of the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institutes of Science and Development. Brazil's strong desire to integrate environmental and climatic goals with its economic transition and development was demonstrated by the signing of the China-Brazil Joint Statement on Climatic Change. This bilateral agreement may also result from a broader scale of multilateral cooperation. The Paris Agreement is one example of how many international multilateral procedures begin with a bilateral agreement. Brazil and China must work together to advance South-South cooperation on a global scale, Fernando Sampaio, director of the Association of Brazilian Beef Exporters, ABIEC. China and Brazil both have a future in international politics. Until recently, affluent countries have mainly controlled the game's rules, whether in trade or deforestation, agenda setting or regulation making. In this sense, developing nations, particularly BRICS, led by China and Brazil, might work together to redraw the map. Instead of establishing rigid rules, China and Brazil are investigating a more collaborative win-win technique allowing various stakeholders to share best practices and lessons learned and jointly design the most effective strategy for constructing a green value chain. To have a significant impact on the concept of global governance, our collective voice must be heard clearly and loudly. The united efforts of China and Brazil in global, shared governance will benefit other nations, particularly emerging countries, by offering perspectives and experience. Cao Dirong, president of the China Chamber of Commerce for Import and Export of Foods, Native Produce, and Animal Byproducts, CFNA. First, by enhancing their collaboration on green transformation, China and Brazil will become major climate champions in developing nations. We can create a collaborative, anti-unilateralist, and anti-barriers to green trade climate cooperation model. Additionally, the world is significantly impacted by the BRICS countries' agricultural development because their output value accounts for more than 50% of the world's total agricultural production and directly supports the livelihoods of 42% of the population. Based on that, the development of the green value chain will be aided by China's and Brazil's transition to green agriculture. A network of trading in agricultural products worldwide may also be made possible. What initiatives is the World Economic Forum taking to combat climate change? The severe threat posed by climate change calls for a prompt response. Communities worldwide already feel the effects of a changing climate, including rising sea levels, floods, and droughts. According to the Global Risks Report from the World Economic Forum, These environmental concerns remain at the top of the list. Businesses, decision-makers, and civil society must advance comprehensive near- and long-term climate actions in line with the objectives of the Paris Agreement on climate change to keep global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius and as close as possible to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The Climate Initiative of the World Economic Forum encourages public and private sector cooperation to scale up and speed up global climate action. The initiative collaborates with several work streams to create and implement inclusive and audacious solutions. This includes the Alliance of CEO Climate Leaders, a network of corporate executives worldwide working to provide low-cost, climate-resilient economic solutions. CEOs use their position and clout with legislators and business partners to hasten the change and achieve the financial gains of creating a safer environment. How to create more sustainable trade relations. Since 2009, China has been Brazil's top trading partner for 14 straight years. The bilateral trade volume between the two nations was $171.49 billion in 2022, a rise of 4.9% from the previous year. China is the largest importer of Brazilian meat, chicken, pork, soybeans, and other agricultural products. Chinese customs data show that in 2022, China imported 91.08 million tons of soybeans, of which 54.4 million tons, or over 60% of the total, came from Brazil. Brazil contributed 1.11 million tons, or 41%, of the 2.69 million tons of imported beef. Wang Yi, Fernando Sampaio, and Cao Durong outlined 4 strategies to create a sustainable trading system and a green supply chain. 1. Improve the exchange mechanism. A more effective bilateral exchange system is required to ensure the seamless flow of information. For the public sector, this entails clearing a road for an institutionalized cooperation mechanism, creating connections for communication at the executive level, and developing sustainable collaboration strategies. The road for businesses is reaching a consensus on a set of agreed standards that might serve as a beacon, pointing the way toward improved information sharing between organizations and across borders. Collaboration between the public and commercial sectors has already begun and made headway. For instance, the Beef Alliance unites top companies in the food sector and civil society organizations to establish standards for Brazil's beef exports that restrict illicit deforestation and land conversion. The Tropical Forest Alliance manages the Beef Alliance. This program may lead to systemic change in one of the most extensive cattle trade connections in the world and may serve as a template for other major economies around the globe. 2. Novel environmental finance. Mechanisms for investing in nature should be devised to close the financial gap. With $81.7 billion in climate finance provided to the world in 2021, multilateral development banks, MDBs, can play a more significant role in guiding nature money. Because of this, MDBs ought to be actively involved in increasing funding for the environment and biodiversity. However, it shouldn't end there. Additionally, we ought to make use of additional green financial instruments. Consider the carbon market in China, which can stop illegal deforestation in Brazil. We can combat environmental deterioration more effectively and turn the page on illicit deforestation by enticing Chinese businesses to buy carbon credits from Brazilian forests. 3. Increase demand for sustainable consumption. The customer's desire should act as a driving force to unleash the market's potential. Selecting environmentally friendly items has a domino effect that encourages businesses to adopt sustainable practices into their daily operations and reduces the direct impact on the environment. Global online searches for sustainable products have increased 71% over the last 5 years, yet the sustainability badge carries a supplementary fee. Although consumers know the value of sustainable options, they frequently find themselves limited by their finances and choose the more affordable traditional options. Making sustainability more accessible is still a significant challenge since it is a missing puzzle. 4. Promote harmony between the environment and the climate. It is time to prioritize biodiversity in conversations about battling climate change. The twin issues of the Anthropocene epoch, climate change and biodiversity, are inexorably linked. IPBES and IPCC estimate that 82% of the net carbon land sink comes from forests, an essential habitat for biodiversity worldwide. In a similar vein, biodiversity management is crucial for climate adaptation. We anticipate more extraordinary symbiosis between climate goals and biodiversity targets and solutions at the Climate Biodiversity Economy Society Nexus. Now, Brazil will host the UNFCCC COP30 in the Amazonian city of Belém in 2025.